Hello and welcome back. And in this video, we're going to continue to develop our Pantry inventory app. And in today's video, we are going to be creating an add update pantry item view. Now, this view is basically going to have access to the model context, and it's going to basically help us create a new entry into the data store using SwiftData. Okay, so we're going to have various different environment and state properties that we're going to use. We're going to also initialize some of these properties, because if the user passes an existing item and they want to update that, we want to add that functionality in this as well, and we want to appropriately populate all the state properties for those existing stored values. Okay, now on the top of that, we're going to be using a SwiftUI form view, which is going to help us lay out all the input fields that we're going to expect our users to enter the information, so we can create that record for them in SwiftData. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. We're going to create a new file, and this is going to be a SwiftUI view file. And we're going to simply name this as add update pantry item. Okay, now I'm going to remove the preview because preview needs some additional setup, so maybe that's a topic for another video course where we can actually talk about how to control the preview and the items and display items on the preview. But today's focus, or this course's focus, is to show you how to build an app end-to-end using SwiftData, and how to basically enable, disable autosave, and check out the functionalities that are provided to you when the autosave is disabled. Okay, so we're going to start by creating some environment properties. We're going to need access to model context first. So let's go ahead and add the model context. But before we actually add the model context, we need to have the access or import the SwiftData, so we can have access to all the SwiftData framework related properties. Then we're going to create our environment object, and the key path that we are looking for is model context. Going to create a private variable called model context for this one. We are also going to need basically a dismiss property, which is another environment property. And the reason we need dismiss, so we can actually dismiss the view that's currently being displayed, and we're going to dismiss the view programmatically. That's why we're going to need this. So just create an environment with the key path dismiss. We're also going to need some state properties, basically to store the data that the user is entering for name, quantity, and expiration date, so we can bind these values to the text fields that we're going to be showing to the user so they can enter the values. And for the expiration date, we're going to start by basically initializing it with the current date. Excuse me. Okay, next what we're going to do is we're going to create a state property, which is going to help us keep track of the selected pantry item. So if, let's say, a pantry item has been passed in and user is intending to update that item, we want to basically store that that property, that passed value somewhere, so we can actually not only initialize our existing state properties to that, but we can also use it to save the value back into the data store. Okay, so we're going to create a state property called selected pantry item, and this is going to be pantry item. Now this item, or this state property, is going to be an optional. The reason it's going to be optional because when you're adding a new pantry item, you're not going to have any selected pantry item value. So in those cases, this is going to be nil. But if user taps on an item that's already been created, then this value is going to be populated. So in those cases, the value is going to be available. So this particular variable or property is going to be an optional type. Okay. Next, we're going to create an init. And as you can see, the Xcode tried to help us, but there's a lot of stuff that they're creating and we don't need all of these. So I'm just going to remove all that. And all we need is basically an item of type PantryItem, which can be passed in, but we're going to by default set a value of nil. Okay. Now, if we get the item, in those cases, we want to make sure that we populate all of our state properties with that value. Okay. So selected PantryItem is going to be populated with the, you can't just simply pass in just item and populate the value for the selected PantryItem. What you need to do is you need to go into the backing variable of the state property, or whatever the state property you have, you need to go to the backing variable of that property. So if you type underscore, you're going to see every single state property that you have a corresponding backing variable, which is actually backing it, storing the original value. So the state type of that value. So we can update or initialize the state property with default values, as long as we are tapping into the backing variable instead of using the display or the state property as is selected PantryItem. I can't do like this. Okay, PantryItem is equal to item because Xcode is going to complain about this one. So let's go and select the underscore selected PantryItem. Use the state initial value override or initializer to basically create a new state property or initialize a new state property for selected PantryItem. Okay. Next, we're going to do the same thing for name. Quantity. And this should be item.name, not name. Name is basically referring this state property, but we need to initialize, if the selected PantryItem has been passed in, we need to initialize the name property with the item's name, the existing item's name. So item.quantity. And the third one is the expiration date. And this is going to be item.expiration date. If the expiration date is not set, then we're gonna basically set it as a default current date. Okay, so that's how we're gonna basically initialize all the state properties. Okay, now next thing what we need to do is we need to build a body body variable for this particular view, and the body variable is going to have a form, and this form is going to host 2 text fields and 1 date picker fields to let user enter a value for a new PantryItem or update the value for existing PantryItem. So we're going to use the date picker in order to bind basically the expiration date. So we can basically display a date picker rather than asking user to enter the date manually. So let's use the date picker view with the label as expiration date. Selection is going to be the expiration date. So the backing value which is going to be populated when user selects something is going to be the expiration date. We also want to set the display component, and we want to say that we only want user to select date. The other values are date, date and time, time, So we are only interested in date, so we're just gonna set it as date. Okay. Now, next thing what we're gonna do is we're gonna need an H stack, which is going to host buttons to either dismiss the view or save an item. So we're gonna create an H stack with button, and we're gonna set the role for this button as destructive. We're gonna dismiss this, and then for the text label, we're gonna simply have cancel here. Okay. Now underneath this, we're gonna basically have a spacer. So this button is this current button is going to basically cancel the view or dismiss the view and go back to the list view. And the next button is going to help us save a record. Okay, so button, this is going to be called save, and we're going to check if let selected pantry item. That means we are making an update. So selected pantry item dot name is equal to the name that user has entered, selected pantry item dot quantity for the user's current set quantity, and selected expiration date as the expiration date. Okay, so we're gonna simply update the record with basically the existing property with the newly entered values. If the selected pantry item is not available, that means this is a new record that we are creating. So we're going to create an item out of pantry item, and we're going to supply the name, quantity, and the expiration date. Okay, so this is going to create a new model or new object to be saved in the model. Now we're going to use a model context, and we're going to insert the item. Okay, now what we want to do, like, right after this is once user has either saved an existing item or created a new item, we want to dismiss this view. Okay, and for these two buttons, what we want to do is we're going to set the button style as bordered prominent. Okay, and one more thing we want to do is right where the form is ending. Okay, we're going to create a navigation title, and basically navigation title is going to display based on what we are showing in the on this view. So if the selected pantry item is not equal to nil, okay, if this condition satisfies, that means we have an item and user is updating an item. We're going to say update name, or we can say item.name. Actually, name is scared. And if if this is not the case and it is a new pantry item, we're going to display new pantry item. Okay, so what's going on is basically okay, let me go ahead and insert it yeah, right here. Okay, so let's see. Right, navigation title. Okay, navigation title. Okay, there's a extra parentheses right here, and we are missing one right here. Okay, there we go. So what we are doing is we are basically displaying a pantry item, or sorry, the title of the pantry item based on whether user has selected an existing item to update. Then we're gonna show the name of the item, and we're gonna say update the name. Otherwise, we're gonna just display the title as new pantry item. Okay, with that, we have actually created our entire add update pantry item view, and this view is basically going to be once again utilized to display the existing pantry item that user can update or add a new item where, like, user create a new pantry item into the store. Now there are going to be different strategies the way we're going to be launching this view. So I'm going to show you that in the next video when we are actually going to be creating our pantry list view. Okay, so I'll see you guys in next video. Thank you.